Hey guys, welcome to That Guy's Garage. So today I'm going to be installing the flex plate, getting the torque converter in there, and I'll be cutting out a little indent inside the cab of the car, so that way I'll have a place to go and plug in the transmission electrical connector. And while I'm at it, I'm going to do a little bit of the exhaust that goes out all the way to the back. Alright, so here's a stock flex plate right here. I'm not going to use this one. They have more of a tendency to crack, and especially with a 1,000 horsepower build like this one. So I'm gonna take this one off, and I bought myself a SFI approved flex plate right here. I got myself ARP flex plate bolts. They say if you have a flex plate and you're just wanting to use the stock one, the best one to use is the ones that were circular right here. They had circles here instead of these bean shaped or oval shaped or whatever you want to call it patterns here. Came from Jegs, and it's part number 601080. It's the heavy duty SFI flex plate for LS1, LS2, LS6. Supposedly it's a little thicker too. And this one's the concave shape that I needed. It came with two different patterns here that you're able to go and fit on here also. And this is what I mean by the circular patterns that are in the flex plate. They say these are a lot better than the other ones. Coned shaped. You can see it's a little bit concave there in the center. Be a pretty hard thing to mess up. It's got the placement of where this thing needs to sit engine side. The weird part is on this build is that I'm not going to be able to go and use the stock flex plate bolts that came with it. So this has got a scat rotating assembly inside of it. It did not want to go in built up with the original stock bolts that would come on your typical 5.3 or anything like that, which was like an M11 by 1.5. But I had to end up getting a 7/16 20 bolt that came off of like a small block Chevy. It's a weird thing. I don't know why they did that. They said that some of them just came like that. You'd think it'd be metric like the rest of the engine, but it was not. Alright, got them all torqued down. Everything set. I was gonna put the transmission into it, but I did get myself a Circle D torque converter. I took a gamble on it. Somebody was selling it on Facebook. These things are around 1,000 to 1,200 bucks. It's a 3,000 to 3,500 install on this thing, and it's Circle D. He didn't use it for a long time. He said he was wanting to upgrade it and go a little bit bigger. He wanted to go more power. Shipped and everything's about 1,200 bucks. So I guess I saved myself about $600. And when I checked the fluid on it, it was pink and everything. And he had it built for a 4L80, which is this. And if you wanted to check out any of the build videos for it on the rebuild, I'll put a link in somewhere in the screen here. But he made it where you can bolt it up to basically a 5.3 or a 4.8 or something like that. It's not the 6-bolt configuration like the 4L80Es are usually, which is fine with me. I don't have to get the adapter like some of them other ones did, where you have to make it stick out. Then you have to get the flat flex plate like the 6 liters have. Honestly, this came out cheaper just to have it this way anyways. Before I put it in, I'm gonna ream these little holes out here, because usually these things want to break off, and I keep seeing posts on Facebook where they're like, well, what should I do? I broke this one, or I broke that one of these on here. What should I do? Well, I don't want that to happen, so I'm gonna go and ream these all out, because it was a little bit of a hassle to get it out of it whenever I was taking the transmission and engine apart. Before I put that transmission in, I'm going to unbolt the rack and pinion right here, because I've got to make it where I twist it just a little bit, because it is sitting on the power steering line. So I'm going to try and make this thing pivot just a little. That's what I'm going to do next before I put the transmission in and get the rest of the exhaust piping put in. I've got the holes wallowed out on this side, and then same thing on this side. So as you can see, it's about 1/8 of an inch away from that oil pan right there, which is good enough for me. I know it might rock and shake, but honestly, these motor mounts are solid polyurethane on here, and there's not much rocking if I try to move this thing. So it's like, oh shit. Well, instead I'm over here moving the entire car. So far that's actually okay with me. I'm cool with that, so I'm just gonna send it. This torque converter, I was putting it in and then I went to bolt it up. I thought I heard 3 steps where, you know, you do the 3 steps to make sure it's in the input shaft, the pump shaft, and the oil pump ring gear. I thought I had stepped on 3 times, but I sucked it in and it was about 1/2 inch away from here, and this torque converter did not want to spin. And I was like, okay, I swear I dropped it in 3 times. So then I went over and got the other torque converter, because I got a billet input shaft on this thing too, and I was thinking maybe it's longer. I mean, from my calculations, it should have all bolted right in. Man, that was taking me some time to get that thing to go in, and I finally got it to drop in, because I thought I just bought a dang torque converter that was not the right one for the right engine and everything. And I was like about to be set back 2 weeks and $400 more, but then it dropped in. I was like, thank you. So it dropped in and I bolted it right up. So I got the transmission in. It's pretty much where it's gonna be sitting. But as you can see, where you plug the connection into the side of the transmission here, I've only got like about 1/8 of an inch here of play, and that's not even enough to go and put the plug in. So I'm gonna have to end up cutting out a little tiny section here for the cord and cable to go and actually go into the car and come back out and actually plug into the transmission. So actually, the cooler lines will have enough room on this side. There's probably 3 or 4 inches on the side of the transmission before it hits the transmission tunnel. Probably gonna have to make it recess in right around here where I can put the wire through this way and it come in through this way. But I've got to cut it. There's no way around that. So just took the transmission back out. This is where the plug is sitting basically. And so I'm gonna cut this right here like this, and leave this part right here attached, and I'm going to indent this into the cab and then go get some extra sheet metal I've got and weld it in so this is recessed backwards, so that way the plug can come in from this side and then plug into the transmission. There's the hole down there. I had to move this vent section for the rear AC. I had to bend it out of the way, and I have to get one of my leather aprons and just put it in here so this stuff don't catch on fire when I start to weld in here. So I found a plug on one of my other transmissions that had it where it comes out like this, where it's like a little 90-degree thing here. That way it's not getting rubbed up against the frame. So I'm just gonna measure how far out here and maybe add like 1/2 an inch for play here. That way I don't have too much of an indent there, because I think the foot pedal is right here in this area. I'm wanting to indent this thing inwards, the least that I can do. Alright, I got a piece of wood here, and then the place where I want to angle it at, and I've got 2 clamps on it, and I just gonna get a hammer and I'm gonna try and bend it over this thing. So now what I'm gonna do is a trick right here where I just take a bunch of this tape and I start layering it in here to where I want it to be cut at, and I'll just tape it all up and make sure it has the right contour and everything. And then when I'm done, I'll mark it out with a marker on the edges of where it's gonna be cut. That way I have a template. I'll be able to make a template here with just some tape, instead of trying to go and put a whole bunch of little magnets on this part. I'm just gonna do tape. Hopefully that's a new trick for you guys. Unless you guys already knew that, then hey, kudos to you. I applied all the tape to it, And now I put little dashes where I gotta fold the lines or fold it, and then I've got solid lines here so I could know where to cut it. I even tried making it a bevel here. It's gonna go up. Yeah, now I gotta get this off and transfer on a piece of metal. And now I've got to find a piece of metal that I can cut off of. And most of this was already used from the Apache build. You can see some were already cut out. I'm hoping I can get something from this red bumper. Or just go the easy route and get this little thing. I'm thinking I'm probably just gonna use this piece. I'll have to clean it up, but it'll be fine. Alright, now I got it all traced out and now I'm gonna cut it. I tried my best to keep the two pieces or all the pieces together, so that way I don't have to keep constantly welding in these gaps. I'm gonna make it where it will basically bend right here. I'm wanting to make it a one piece here, make it way easier to mess with, and then have creases here all the way around, so I have something to weld to also. So I just reapplied the tape to where I cut it, and cut a little too much off here and got it there, but it's fine. Still enough meat on the bone here. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get my center punch and I'm gonna punch out where I need it to bend. And I'll put it here, here, wherever it needed to. That way I'll take the tape off, then I'll get my ruler and I'll trace out where I need to bend it and cut it. Then I'll bend it with this bender over here. Doesn't look pretty, but you know what? I'm gonna stand it in the end, and I'm gonna, because I gotta put some sealant on here just so no rain gets inside the car. But it'll be fine after what it looks like. This is just the beginning. I got it all straight like this because it has a little bit of a bow here. I gotta grind off the edges so that I can get it to weld. Then I'll grind up all these little pieces over here also because it's a little bit higher. Something like that. I gotta push it in a little bit more, but I gotta grind a little bit more up here and around down here where there's a little bit of paint still, and even in there. It's all welded up now. That's where the little plug is gonna come in. Now I've got to paint it. So I just placed this little piece here on here so that way I can fit it into the transmission and go like this. So that way I can place it in there like this sideways. Transmission is in, people. It is in. And I just put the exhaust pipe on the exit part here. It has been sitting for a little bit, that's why it's got a little rust to it. So it's touching there, so I'm gonna end up having to do something with that. Cords is in there. And you can see it, how it sits. And now I have to indent it here also for this transmission lever there. Planning the exhaust is for it to come, one comes this way, and this one comes this way, and it's not gonna go into these two exhaust pipes. I've got enough 3-inch exhaust to come out. I'm gonna make two dump pipes here that run off the vacuum and make it point downwards, and I'm gonna still use these right here. I'm gonna make it Y off from this. I'm still gonna have the OEM exhaust on here. It's almost going to be a sleeper here. Wow, this tire is separated. It's Saturday in the morning right now, 8 o'clock. Thought I would have been up a little bit earlier, but I kind of slept in today. Usually because the baby wakes us up at 6 o'clock. Before I get the exhaust crossover put on, it is a bit of a hassle to get this thing on and off. So what I'm doing is I gotta get this plate back off, and I'm gonna go get the torque converter bolts for this thing and measure the torque converter depth on this thing, because I don't want to have to pull this back off just because I didn't put the bolts in. So I've got to go down to the store and go get me some torque converter bolts. I want to go and put the crossover on and start trying to build this exhaust, and that is the plan for today. Usually don't work on Saturdays, but I haven't been really getting anything done the past week, so I'm gonna be working today and tomorrow. So yeah, I'm heading over to O'Reilly's to go get me some torque converter bolts today. All right, I got my torque converter bolts, and I got some washers just in case I needed to space that thing out. 1/8 of an inch to 3/16 of an inch of an air gap between the torque converter and the flex plate. So right here, I have to make sure that the torque converter is pushed all the way into the transmission. And then what I'll do is measure the gap right here. I'll measure the gap in between the torque converter here and the flex plate. So what I'm going to be doing is a trick here. I have these center punches here. I'll slide one of these in between the torque converter and the flex plate, and I'll see which one it is, and it'll tell me what size it is. It has all these measurements on there. Oh, we're getting there. Oh, I might have found it. 3/64 as my closest measurement, and then I just gotta make sure that that's within spec. So this measurement is telling me that it is out of spec, so I'm gonna stick a washer in there and see if we can get 1/8 of an inch at least in between it, and we should be within spec. All right, I've got 1/8 of an inch center punch here as a measurement, and I've got my washer in there with it. It's within specs now. Now I'm gonna bolt it up. All right, I now have the correct spacing here. All right, we are good to go on the next step. So I got the plate installed here. I have the exhaust after the turbo's hooked up here. I even made 2 dots right there so I can have a reference mark because it would move every single time. So now I'm gonna have a straight pipe basically come out here, and then it's gonna turn and go right into this valley right here where the old exhaust kit went in, and then it's gonna go this way, and then it's gonna, you can kind of see it's gonna turn right here and go right below the drive shaft. All right, I got some of the exhaust put on now. The easiest solution for me to make it where I can make this come off in pieces, this little coupling here. Other than a V-band, this is the next best thing to seal up an exhaust wherever you cut it. So what I did was I placed this on here, and then I marked out these markings on here. That way I have a reference of where it needs to be exactly, because I have to cut this part right here. I need to have this cut off because this entire piece right here is attached to the turbo. It is all hanging on the turbo right now. It ain't much. I have my jack stand right here that's helping me out. So I'm just gonna get the Sawzall, I'm gonna cut it right there, and we'll go on to the next part. All right, so I'm down to trying to get this straight pipe here. Basically where it's gonna end up is dumping right before rear differential there. And I'm wanting to make it as straight as I can, so I came up with the solution here. There was like this little bolt here that's just like sticking out like right here, like this. I guess it's for a skid plate or whatever, but I used that, had a piece of metal here, and I got this, and then there's this valley kind of like on that side. It's pretty much, I'm going straight with that and just hold it up and then drop it down, and then so I can get it as straight as I can get it. I'm back here and I am just eyeballing it right next to that bar there, basically, so I can get it as straight as I can get it. Then I've got it already marked here, so that way I can cut it. I don't know, sometimes you got to think outside of the box just to get a straight cut or make the pipe straight, because if you put it on and you weld it, next thing you know the whole thing is just crooked and one way or the other, and that's really what I didn't want. I know nobody's gonna look at it underneath here, but I know what's under here, so I just wanted to have the peace of mind of me having it straight, knowing that it's straight under here and that it's done right, because I didn't want to have it having problems down the road. So that'll conclude this video for this week, guys, and hopefully the cliffhanger with the exhaust will make you want to come back and watch the next video. And if you like this video, hit that like button, and if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do so. But anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.